we're working with people that want to be superhuman, unstoppable, and we want your testosterone to be at that range where you can be
Yeah,
superhuman. And
exactly. So if someone's listening to this and you're lacking motivation, drive, your morale's down, like a lot of the guys we talk to, they have brain fog or they feel borderline depressed. They're like, dude, I just don't feel the way I want to feel. I am back with the man, Dr. J, and this mini series that we're doing together is officially titled Everything That I'm Taking to Become Superhuman with Dr. J. And today we're going to be talking about hormones. So, Dr. J, what hormones are we going to be touching on today?
yeah, hormones are so important for what goes on in the body. Um, so we're going to talk about just a few. We want to talk about testosterone and estrogen balance, particularly for men. Most of our listeners are men on your podcast and my podcast both. So testosterone, cortisol, which is your stress hormone, and insulin, which is a major metabolism controlling hormone. So
hmm Yeah, and then so like you said, for guys, they hear about TRT. Everyone's talking about TRT, and most people think it's just like a steroid. Like you're gonna take it and get super jacked in the gym and have abs, and it's gonna be easy to get results. And number one, that's not the case. But since I met you about a year and a half ago and started working with you, you've educated me a lot on testosterone alone, not just all the hormones and how intertwined everything is in the body, but one of the things that really caught my attention is like you're like Sean, if your hormones are not optimized, your cells can't be optimized. Meaning, if your hormones are off, it's impossible for your cells to function optimally, and that's going to lead to all kinds of things down the road. When you told me that, I was like, wow. And you explained to me that your cognition and things like even like cancer, Alzheimer's, dementia, all these different things that develop in people as they get older, these ailments are somewhat preventable or are preventable if your hormones are dialed in, right? So I started on TRT personally probably a year ago. And before I took my test with you, I thought I felt pretty damn good. And that's when you explain to me, you go, look, you're in the gym working out, you're motivated. I get that. But a lot of other health factors are dependent on your hormones being balanced. So that's when we looked at testosterone, we looked at estrogen, we looked at my cortisol levels, we looked at my insulin sensitivity. And so, since working with you and addressing those things, my health has definitely improved. Things like my sleep, my recovery. Yeah, my strength in the gym has gone up. Yeah, my results from all the work I put in the gym have improved. But it's all those other things like your focus, your morale. So let's explain that to like somebody who's watching this right now and they've heard all the buzz about testosterone or hormones in general. Where do you want to start? Because I think we get a lot of questions where people are fearful of TRT or hormonal replacement therapy. So let's kind of break down why hormones are so important first of all.
yeah, because hormones are controlling what's going on inside your body. And the reason why people are fearful is because there's so much bad information out there, from the conventional medical world, which has terrible information on so many things. But then also there's lots of really bad examples. Like you brought up steroids and anabolic steroids, and people think that is what testosterone replacement is, which is very, very different. There's two completely different things. Um, so yes, you can actually use the same testosterone that you're taking for testosterone replacement and use it like anabolic steroid in supra physiologic doses. So that's like beyond normal doses, and get excessive muscle growth and things like that. The same type of results you can get from an anabolic steroid, but an anabolic steroid is different than testosterone, because an anabolic steroid has been chemically changed testosterone, or chemically changed DHT, or another hormone, chemically changed and altered to be 10 to 100 to 1,000 times stronger than normal testosterone. So when we're doing testosterone replacement, we want to do testosterone, actual testosterone, the same testosterone your body wants to make and does make. We're just giving to that, in a 1-to-1, more of that to you. That's called bioidentical testosterone. And so very different effects than something like a Winstrol or a Decadurabolin, or anyway. There's lots of anabolic steroids that are, like I said, 100 to 1,000 times stronger than testosterone. And because of that, they're 100 to 1,000 times more likely to cause problems. And people think those problems are the same things that come up with actual testosterone replacement, which is not true. Two completely different things, two completely different goals that we're trying to achieve when we're doing those therapies. So I think that's the biggest one is, the basically the gym bro medicine that talks about the anabolic steroids, and then conventional medicine, because of that, they're afraid of that as well. They're afraid of testosterone. They don't know how to prescribe it. They don't know how to recommend it or work in the readings because of just the bad information that's out there. And so it definitely makes sense that people are afraid and don't understand, because really all of the information out there that's commonly available is just poor quality information.
Yeah, and you shared some with me the other day specifically about TRT. I forgot what you called it, the black box label, or there was a certain term you used. But can you share that
Yeah.
new research that's come out about
Yeah.
TRT?
So with medications, sometimes medications have a warning label that gets, when they get approved, they're like, this is approved, but there's a warning with it. And that's called a black box label. And different medications have had it over time. But for testosterone, they had a black box warning for cardiovascular health. And so that means when testosterone got approved by the FDA, they said they were worried about the cardiovascular effects and the negative possibilities with that. And that was, back in the 90s or whenever that officially came through, late 80s. And so that black box warning has been there, that and linking testosterone with cardiovascular health problems. Um, but the data was so overwhelming. In fact, so overwhelming, showing that testosterone is beneficial for cardiovascular health, that just within the last month or so, since we're doing this recording, they had to remove that black box warning, because no longer could they, say that science showed that taking testosterone increased any type of cardiovascular risk events. And so that was a huge step for testosterone replacement therapy in general, because it's very rare that the FDA will remove a black box warning like that, unless, like I said, the data and the science has to be so overwhelming that it shows that. So, and like I said,
What is
it's
it called?
overwhelming
A black
that it's
a
good for
black
your heart.
box?
Yeah, black box warning, because most prescriptions come in a box, and they have a little like black warning label on it for the pharmacists. So
Yeah, well, that's crazy too. Like you said, the FDA very seldom is going to reverse one of those warnings. So the research and evidence must have been just so definitive, so
right.
overwhelming. Um, and so that's one of the things is like people always have these concerns about testosterone. So cardiovascular issues is one. Um, what's another one that we hear often? Well, a lot of doctors, like I talk to guys and they go to the doctor and their testosterone's at 300 and the doctor goes, "Oh, well, you're somewhat within range. Like you're good." I've
Yeah.
even heard like, and so let's clear that up for anyone listening to this. If they want to have a good life, like they want to feel good, they want to age properly or not age, right?
Yeah.
They want to have their health 100% optimized. Where should a man's testosterone be?
Right. Yeah, there's a very big difference between normal on a normal lab value and optimal on a lab value. And so that's really what we need to discuss, because how lab companies come up with that normal range is they take 10,000 samples of all the men that give blood, and then they're like, oh, this is what the average bell curve looks like, and so that's what they determine as normal, when really the majority of men that go and get their blood work done are older men that are sick and overweight and metabolically not healthy, high blood pressure, heart disease, which is why that bell curve is so skewed down low. But when we look at the studies of men that are healthy, they're optimized, they're building muscle, they have the best brain health, the best heart health, the best, functioning overall, the best moods, their testosterone range is between 800 and 1200. And so that's the optimal range. And then and the studies then back it up and show that men that are between 800 and 1200 have less heart attacks. They have less strokes. They have less Alzheimer's disease. They have less cancer. They have, better sexual function, better sex lives, better moods, better attitudes, better memory, kind of all the things kind of across the board that we're looking for, less aches and pains, all the things happen with men in that testosterone level of 8 to 1200. And so that's where it is. And so that's what we shoot for. Like we don't want people to be normal that we work with. We're working with people that want to be superhuman, unstoppable, and we want your testosterone to be at that range where you can be,
Yeah, yeah.
superhuman and unstoppable.
Exactly. So if someone's listening to this and you're lacking motivation, drive, your morale's down, like a lot of the guys we talk to, they have brain fog or they feel borderline depressed. They're like, dude, I just don't feel the way I want to feel. And they notice like this kind of drastic change when they get to what their late 30s, 40s. Chances are your testosterone, something's off. We can test that. Dr. J can test you to see where your testosterone levels are at. So they can go to unstoppable365.com. They can reach out to one of us individually through Messenger, through one of our social media platforms. But definitely get the test because at least you'll see where you're at. And then from there, if you do need help with your hormones, Dr. J is the man to see. And so let's kind of use that as a seg, or unless there's anything
Well,
else you want
yeah,
to.
let's one last thing on that. By the time you start to notice that decline, like you notice, a lot of guys are talking about the late 30s when they start to notice it. By the time you notice it, that means you've probably been low for 5 to 7 years and just slowly catching up to you. So I did, and this is what I learned from my good friend now going on however many years ago, since I was 27 when I was in medical, finishing up medical school and at his office, and he's ran my testosterone, and he's like, "You're at 536, 27. You need to be higher." And I was like, "What are you talking about? I'm good, right?" I hadn't learned everything yet, and started on testosterone when I was 27 and taking it pretty consistently since then. Of course, I always forget every now and then because doctors are the worst patients. Um, and I'm my own worst patient a lot of times. But so if you are starting to notice the signs, if you're starting to wonder if that you might be low in testosterone, you should have got your labs checked 2 years ago. So today's, you can't go back in time 2 years ago, but today is a day you can get that checked. So
Yeah, and something I will add too, a lot of guys go to like men's ageless clinic or other doctors, and these companies are starting to charge a lot for testosterone. Maybe is that because they want to make more money, Dr. J? Or yeah, yeah. So what I will say, without going too in depth, is a Dr. J's priced in a way that's very affordable for people, and it's the best value that I've seen out there compared to any other option. So don't procrastinate, man. If you're listening to this, you got to get your TRT checked. Go to unstoppable365.com,
okay.
navigate the website. You'll find how to take. I believe it's on there, right? How to get access to the TRT test, the hormone test.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, it shouldn't be too hard to find, especially since we're updating our website to be even more user friendly in the next week or
Yeah,
so.
yeah,
But yeah, and then just on that too, like it's definitely kind of scary with how easy it is to get testosterone online. And you might meet with a doctor provider once, and they might prescribe it. And then I've talked to guys who have gone multiple years without ever talking to another doctor or ever getting their labs done afterwards to verify that they're at a good, healthy level for their testosterone. And so this is also a warning for you guys that are out there listening. If you are on testosterone from an online clinic, because there's lots of them, and they're not checking on you, they're not verifying that you're in a good range, they're not checking your other markers that need to be checked. Um, you go somewhere that's at least going to pay attention to you and cares, and not just trying to collect like your money all the time. So
yeah, yeah. That's crazy. Like I do my blood work, especially checking my testosterone, estrogen every 3 months, and then doing the deeper dive. Once a year at the least, to see how my overall body, my biomarkers, my health is adapting, changing, improving. So let's segue into just briefly before we talk about cortisol and insulin. I want to touch on estrogen because one of the things that happened when I got my test was my estrogen was actually really low, which you said was good, the ratio to estrogen and testosterone. But as you take testosterone, the estrogen can start to creep up, and that can affect health, right? It can affect your. We got a special guest here, real quick, too.
you're
Preston wants to say
Preston
hi.
making
That can affect
his
a
appearance like
lot of
normal.
things. So, can you briefly explain? Like, I thought estrogen was more relevant to women, but every men and women have, testosterone.
Yep.
They have estrogen. So, can you explain to the viewers like why estrogen is important, what kind of roles it plays with health, and what they got to do there?
Yeah. Yeah, and it is important. And there's just like women have testosterone, men need estrogen too. And it's a need. You can't just suppress your estrogen completely and think you're going to feel good. For men, estrogen is important for moods. It's important for libido. It's important for bone health, important for brain health, lots of different things. But it needs to be in the right balance and ratio with testosterone. So we want somewhere around a 20 to or 1 ratio of testosterone to estrogen on your labs. Um, but there's sometimes too is some guys do better with a little bit higher estrogen, and so it's all about you and what your body's telling us and how you're feeling and how we can optimize you. Because I've even seen some studies recently. I've been a little bit looser on some estrogen control for guys that don't have any symptoms. That estrogen is good for the heart and can help you even if it's a little bit higher. If your testosterone is also a little bit higher, it's all about that balance and that ratio. And then women as well. Like we're talking about men mostly, but women get low in testosterone too, and women have estrogen and testosterone imbalances as well, and so that's important as well. So,
Yeah, and I didn't realize testosterone played such a key role in like for women, a lot of factors and stuff related to like libido as they get older and just like a lot of the stuff related to morale and feeling vigorous and feeling good about like feeling comfortable in their skin, feeling, a lot of important things. So if there's anybody listening to this, if it's a woman or hey man, if you're listening to this and your wife is having certain symptoms, she's getting what into her 40s, close to menopause age and stuff. I don't know. I mean, I know I'm not the expert here, Dr. J is, but I know that it plays a key role in women's well-being as well.
yeah. Oh, for sure. And those mental emotional symptoms you mentioned, those are just same for men and women. That's what testosterone does. Men just have more testosterone receptors, so they need more, 10 times more than women. Um, but it's so important. So that mood, that focus, that motivation, that libido fits in there too. All of that is testosterone driven in the body and especially in the brain. So
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Here's a big one for a lot of business owners, a lot of entrepreneurs. I guess maybe just all adults nowadays is issues with cortisol, so, like your cortisol levels, right? I mean, they say that's a stress hormone. Is that accurate, Dr. J?
yeah. Yeah, so cortisol is your stress hormone. And cortisol, the one thing too, like cortisol is good. Like we want to have a stress hormone. When a bear jumps out in front of you, when you're walking through the forest, you want your cortisol level to spike so that you can run away from the bear. The problem is in our world, like you mentioned, our world is so overstimulated and so stressed out that we're in that mode all the time. And so, just so cortisol design, that bear jumps out in front of you, you're walking through the forest. Cortisol will push the blood from your brain and from your body to your extremities so that you can run away. Problem is, when you're doing that, you're not thinking logically, you're running away as fast as you can. And so all of these things, that's why stress affects us. And stress is going to affect your heart, stress is going to affect your brain and slow down your reasoning and negatively impact your heart health because you're basically trying to run away from the bear all day long. And so that's what cortisol does. And cortisol, like I said, we it's as it drops, it controls so many things. Dropping cortisol, especially at night, is a good thing because that's going to help us sleep and rest and recover, and lots of good things there. It controls so many things that are going on in the body. When your cortisol is off, when your cortisol is elevated, your body is in run away from the bear mode. It's not in the rest and relax and repair mode. And so that is a big driver for accelerated aging, for 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 inflammation that builds up and causes heart issues and other things over time. So cortisol a big player there.
Yeah. And so for people that have trouble sleeping, do you think cortisol plays a big factor in that?
For so many people, it's a big factor. Um, so yeah.
And you can test for that directly, right? Like one of the things I think it's the saliva test that
Yep.
shows the cortisol. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's the saliva test because your cortisol does fluctuate during the day naturally, right? Cortisol is supposed to rise in the morning and help you go and function in the morning, and then it slowly decreases during the day. And so if you do just a blood test for cortisol, you're not going to know were you high or low in the morning or night or and that's why the saliva test with multiple saliva samples during the day can give us a picture of what that curve looks like for you of your rise and fall so we can know because some people they might do a blood test and their cortisol looks perfect in the afternoon but where was it in the morning? They might have been spiking super crazy high. And so that's why the saliva is the gold standard for measuring cortisol. And there's also, they do a urine 24-hour cortisol collection. That's going to just tell you your total cortisol. And it might show up high, sure, but where was it high? Was it high at night? Was it high in the morning? And because you treat both those differently. Like if your cortisol is high in the night, you're a very different treatment plan than for someone who has cortisol high in the morning. And so we need to. That's why the saliva, like I said, is the gold standard for seeing what your cortisol levels do. So,
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm coming up soon on a redoing my saliva test and my blood test because when we first did it, my cortisol spike at night was pretty high, you know.
yeah,
But I noticed since taking the supplements you recommended for me, like the nighttime and the AM, the morning vitamins, and then I really think too optimizing my hormones has helped, but the quality of my sleep has improved tremendously. So if anyone's listening to this, number one, put your phone away 30 minutes before bed because we know those screens stimulate that
yep.
that
Spike your
don't they
cortisol at night. Yep.
yeah, right. And so but secondly, you got to get it checked. Uh, and so what do yeah, like what is something that you recommend to an individual with high cortisol? Like what are the steps? Supplements included,
Yeah.
lifestyle changes. What would you tell somebody who has
Right.
high cortisol?
Yeah, because it's those cortisol patterns develop over years, right? So it's even if you have a super stressful day, on the day you do that, your saliva sample, it's not going to pick up very differently than it would from the day before. That might have been just a chill day resting at home on the weekend kind of thing. Because those patterns are kind of hardwired over decades for most people. And um, so yeah, it kind of depends on where you're high, where you're low, and kind of what that looks like. Sometimes people are high in the morning and they crash in the afternoon. They're high again at night, and so anyway, there's all different kind of protocols. But there's definitely lifestyle things that we need to connect. There's sleep habits, sleep hygiene ideas that can help to bring cortisol down at night, like you mentioned, turning off your phone. Um, Cuddling with your wife is a good way to lower cortisol at night. Um, and so anyway, there's lots of different ways that to show just simple things over that can reestablish that healthy cortisol balance. It's not like a magic one pill that suddenly you take a pill and you're good. No, you're going to slowly retrain that cortisol pathway to get back on track over time.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure phones is the biggest one for most people and just
Yeah,
screens in
and TV
general.
screens. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and
Oh,
then
another big one is people will have their phone charging next to my phone is charging right now, but their phone charging next to their head, next to their bed, and that's another big problem too. Because when your phone is plugged in, there's so much more EMFs and radiation that's coming off of your phone while it's actually charging.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point. Okay, so touched on testosterone, estrogen, cortisol. We wanted to talk about insulin too, because I think you told me, correct me if I'm wrong, did you tell me insulin's the most important hormone in the body?
Um, so
Can you even say
depending on the time of day, I might think differently, but yes, insulin controls so much of how you feel on a day-to-day basis, but also how you age over the years to come. So insulin is one of the biggest things. When that gets off track, when you have insulin resistance, it's what leads to so many of the problems. It's one of the biggest root cause problems for health in general, kind of across the board in the United States. 94% of Americans are metabolically sick with insulin resistance. So,
wow, that is crazy. And I can guess why, but let's
right.
real quickly. I think most people know what insulin is, but if someone doesn't fully know,
Yeah.
want to just give a simple explanation.
So, um, and the reason why people don't know about it is because conventional medicine never checks it as well. So, because we know that insulin is connected with their blood sugars, and so even if you go get your yearly physical from your doctor, they'll look at your blood sugars and be like, "Oh, your blood sugars are fine," um, but they need to look at your insulin because that's the more important thing. Because perfect example, I had a guy yesterday come in. He's been tracking his blood sugars. I've been trying to let him know, hey, things are off here with this insulin resistance. And so he's like, okay, I'm gonna get a blood sugar monitor. And so he did. He ran it for 2 weeks. His blood sugars were not bad, but he was just so inflamed. He's just been so not feeling good. I'm like, we need to actually measure your insulin, because the blood sugars will do one thing, but if your insulin still stays high, then that's what insulin resistance is when insulin is not absorbing, or insulin, um, the insulin signaling is slow, so insulin is high in the bloodstream, which is a much bigger problem than having blood sugars that are high. Um, and so, because that happens over time. So insulin being off is kind of like the pre-diabetes, and the problem can be just as bad even with perfect blood sugars than not. So, like this guy, like I said, his blood sugars looked great, but he was sick, and I'm sure he came in this morning, and so I'll see his blood tomorrow and see what his insulin was, and I'm sure that is going to be out of control, because that insulin is the controller switch for your metabolism. It controls whether you burn fat or you burn carbs. And so, like, well, I'll talk to people like the guy yesterday. He's like, I'm not eating anything. I'm hardly eating any food, and I still can't lose weight. I'm like, well, because your insulin is stuck in sugar burning mode, and you're never going to burn fat when your insulin is elevated. So anyway, and there's so many problems with aging and inflammation are connected back with that same pathway. So
Yeah, and I mean, you see how many people nowadays are pre-diabetic or they develop type 2 diabetes. So let's talk to the viewers right now. If somebody wants to avoid becoming insulin resistant, what should they do? Because you just said that causes a host of health issues down the road, right?
right.
So what should they do to avoid becoming insulin resistant and developing all those health ailments that are preventable?
Yeah. So yeah, there's lots of things. The Definitely I would get your numbers checked is one of the big things. And so then you can take that number, take your fasting insulin number, and they can take your blood sugar number, and you can throw it in a calculator called the HOMA IR calculator. That's HOMA dash IR. You go online and find those. So HOMA IR calculator, put in your fasting, put in your fasting insulin and your glucose score. If you have your A1C, just translate your A1C into your average glucose, and it will give you a score on how bad your insulin resistance is. And so the lower the number, the better. Insulin resistance starts at 1.9 on that scale, and then 2.9 is significant insulin resistance. Um, and so a lot of times people think that their blood sugars are just fine, and we put the numbers in those calculators, and it shows that their insulin resistance is through the roof. Um, and so, first off, knowing how bad your insulin resistance is important. And we do that. And if your conventional doctor is not running fasting insulin for you, fire them and go to a doctor who will. Because if a doctor doesn't understand the importance of fasting insulin, that means they're working for the insurance companies, not for you. And so, as nice of a person as they probably are, go find someone else. Um, and and then you want to make sure that, so anyway, that's the first step, knowing how bad your insulin resistance is. Second step is your muscle mass in general is the number one controller, or the number one metabolism booster in your body. And it uses the most insulin, it uses the most sugar. So you need to be building muscle, even at any age. So my grandma's 86. She's hanging out with me this week at home. Because she's in town for some other family things. But they did a study that had women in their 80s that had never done any resistance training, and they put them on a simple resistance training program. All these 80-year-old women, and all of them gained muscle. All of them built muscle with a simple resistance training protocol. So even my grandma at 86, she still doesn't follow my recommendations because she's 86 and does whatever she wants. But if she wanted to, she could build muscle. So there's no excuse for anyone to not be able to build muscle. So, because so step number one, you need to start building muscle, because that will start soaking up the sugar and start improving that insulin response. So that's key. And then you need to control your meals, time your meal planning, get your protein in. No snacking between meals. Avoid. Anyway, there's lots of other little details that get thrown in there, but that's step number one. Um, and probably another one to throw in is, at the end of the day, after you're done eating, go for a 20-minute walk, and then don't eat or drink anything until your next meal the next day. We could
Yeah,
spend a
those
whole hour talking about all those other details, but
Yeah, no, those are great tips, and people think like building muscle is just for people who want to look big and buff, but that's not true. lean muscle, so that you can do what Dr. J is talking about, improve your metabolism, improve your insulin sensitivity. I mean, there's just so many benefits that come from adding muscle to your frame. And for anyone listening to this too,
Right.
it's really hard to get big and bulky. Like it takes a lot of dedication. There's a lot of, um, you know, a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of eating, meaning you got to eat in a calorie surplus. And it's not just going to happen accidentally. It's intentional. So for anyone
Right.
listening to this, if you're not doing resistance training, minimum of 3 days per week, like Dr. J just mentioned, you got to get in the gym. If you don't know what workouts to do or you need help and accountability, that's what we're here for. So go to unstoppable365.com. We have a bunch of different plans that people can sign up for, and get you in the gym, get you consistently working out.
Right. Yeah,
So
I was trying to find a quote that I saw on social media just the other day, but I couldn't. I thought I saved it, but I couldn't find it. But it talked about going to the gym today is your insurance policy versus ending up in a wheelchair when you're 80. And so you got to build muscle. There, the data is so clear. The more muscle you can build at any age, the better your quality of life, the better your metabolism, the slower you're going to age. Everything across the board gets better by building muscle.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And kind of like to go back to what we were talking about with hormones in general. Um, working out helps your hormones naturally to balance themselves out to an extent, right? Uh, you're not going to replace all of the testosterone you need by working out, but it definitely will help. But that's also a reason to optimize your hormones by doing a blood test or working with somebody like Dr. J, because then it becomes a lot easier for your body to build muscle, right? Like,
Right.
real quick, let's touch on that. For guys that are super low in testosterone levels, Dr. J,
Yep.
it's harder for them to build muscle, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I just a client came to my mind. He's one of our local guys. So I just saw him in office Monday. He was here. And so he told me like he's a guy, he's an entrepreneur. He's like, go, go, go. His business, he's about 13 to 15 million a year. So he's doing awesome with business. He's, expanding, growing. Um, and he's one of those guys that he was doing 75 hard, 5 times in a row type of thing. And so, but he was still 28% body, 29% body fat, I think is where he was, and he could never build muscle, and he was still kind of like he was like during the day mentally he's like go 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 entrepreneur, but then physically he was just crashing at night when he got home. Like he couldn't build a muscle, he couldn't feel anything. So we did the foundational stuff, like we talked about supplements with video number one. We did the supplements, we got him on testosterone. And he hadn't even started peptides yet, but it's just getting those few basic things dialed in. 6% drop in body fat in 6 weeks. Suddenly
Wow.
everything clicked in. So, getting your nutrition, which we'll talk more about nutrition, and that's going to be our next episode, more about deeper dive into nutrition. But getting your supplements dialed in, getting your hormones optimized, everything is going to work better, right? And so it doesn't do you any good to go buy $3,000 of peptides off of some random website online if you don't have your basic nutritional and levels under control and your basic hormone levels optimized. And so, like I said, so our client I just mentioned, he's getting ready. He's going to have a killer before and after for us. So he's super awesome. And that's just going to be, a few weeks away because he's already killing it. And since he's doing so good, we threw the peptides on top to accelerate his results even more. So he's going to be doing awesome. So,
Yeah, no, that is awesome. I mean, the foundation definitely is, your habits with fitness and nutrition. But then from there, there's so many levels that you can hit. And if someone's watching this or listening right now, Dr. J and I did an episode about peptides, I think a week or two ago. So you can find that either on YouTube or on my Facebook page, as well as like putting all the pieces together and how to put fitness, nutrition, getting your hormones balanced, supplements. That's what we did. We did the supplement one first and the blood work, but
yeah,
how to put all the pieces together. There's a couple episodes like that. And so, yeah, people think like, I'm just going to take peptides or I'm just going to do this. And that's not the way it works. These things are supplemental, meaning they're in addition to what you should be doing. But
right.
like Dr. J just shared with a client he's working with, if your hormones are off, you're gonna feel like no matter what you do, you can't get to that level you want to be at. Like the guy
Yeah.
who was having trouble losing that extra body fat. I hear it from guys all the time. They're like, I got this little pouch on my tummy, I can't lose it. I'm working out, I'm doing all this stuff, and it's probably what, either testosterone's low, estrogen's high, or both, or something's going
Yeah,
on.
cortisol
So
affecting it, yeah.
yeah, you got to do the blood test. You got to do the work with Dr. J to be able to see what's taking place, internally, and then you can fix it and remedy it. So again, dude, this is a really, really good episode, Dr. J, and all the stuff we're sharing. I mean, these are the things that you've shared with me and our clients that have made a huge change in my life and radically transform our clients' lives. So if someone's listening, you can comment on this video. You can go to unstoppable365.com. You can reach out to me and Dr. J on our social media channels. And if you have questions, please ask us. That's what we're here for. And we want to help you get results and live the healthiest, most optimal life possible. So
Yep.
thanks for being here, Dr. J. Is there anything else you want to share before we wrap this episode up?
So yeah, I just want to, because talking about results, we were on our men's call for our men's group yesterday. We started talking a little about some peptides, and yeah, the one guy in the chat chimed in. He's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, I'm down 90 pounds since starting working with us." So if you want results like that, we have a plan for you. Let's figure out how to customize that for you and get things dialed in.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go. All right, man. I'll see you soon. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you for your time.
All right, thanks, Sean.